Okay, looks like we are live. Only problem is I can't see the chat, so oops, wrong one. Arg. This thing is a pain in the neck. Blah, 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 blah. Well, that's really frustrating. I was hoping to have a larger window to work with. Let's see. Looks like we've got one more minute, so I might as well jump in. If any of you are watching, you see I'm having a little trouble setting up OBS to where I can actually see your comments without it covering up half my screen. So I'm going to have to slide it over just a little bit. No, Windows, I don't want to stick it. I just want to move it off to the side there. I don't want to dock it. Okay, so this is going to be extremely informal. I have never done this before. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to pull it off, and I've only got a couple of hours before I have to pull up sticks and head for the gym. So there's my first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is because this is live, you're just going to have to deal with any gaps, over speaks, me tripping over words, and my hick accent. So, again, just bear with me. Our purpose here today is I am going to try and live code my current IP project into 960 widescreen. Now currently it runs in 480 widescreen, and I want to upscale it. I mean, it'd be simple enough just to turn it up to 960, right? But production-wise, that's a whole new ball game. As you can see right here on the screen, for comparative sake, I want to show how this is going to work. So most of you have probably seen River City Girls, and if you haven't, just look at the video, and you'll notice that it ostensibly is high resolution, right? And we hear a lot of that. Why can't we have more high resolution sprites like these? Well, the dirty secret is they're not high resolution at all. As you can see, I've got a sprite from River City Girls here as an example, and it is actually roughly half the size of Axel from Streets of Rage 2, who is slightly smaller than my own sprite of Valis from Quests of Quien. All they're doing is live upscaling to higher resolution, and it just gives you the appearance of a nice high resolution sprite. And this also applies to even stuff like King of Fighters, even Ultra, or not Ultra Street Fighter, whatever the higher resolution Street Fighter was. Granted, they were of course much larger than these guys here, but they weren't true high resolution sprites. There's really no such thing because of it just costs too much to produce, and why do that when you can scale it? Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about how we can do that in OpenBOR, and usually the assumption is we can't. That is, of course, not true. You can most certainly do that in OpenBOR, and the reason that I'm doing it is so that you have a larger native screen, and also so that by having a higher resolution native, I can do higher resolution HUDs while still retaining the 480 scaled Valis Jan sprite and it not being a pixel on the screen. So now let's actually get started. So just for testing, let's make sure that the original module actually works. Whoa, that's pretty loud. Let's turn that down. Luca, yes. When I have the module ready in a playable state, I will probably start by releasing a free demo when Valis is playable, a one-stage demo, and then when the other characters are ready and the game is actually ready for production, then I don't know if I will use Steam, but I will definitely self-publish it on some place that I can actually sell the game. I'm not looking to make money off of it. In fact, I probably will lose out on my production costs, but I'm thinking maybe like $5, $10, something like that, just to say I sold a game and take it from there. Anyway, this is the game right now in its current state. Valis can walk, he can run. His vertical jump is complete. I haven't finished his horizontal or running jump, so he's just still using the same animation for everything. And the HUD is still the bog standard OpenBOR, and I'm using a background from another game. So very, very early in production at this point, and that makes it a good time to go ahead and work on the resolution. Now, anytime that you want to do a coding that you haven't done before, the best thing to do is plagiarize, and the best place to do that is from yourself. So I have downloaded my own anaglyph demo, which contains a subscreen. Oh, gentlemen, you'll have to excuse me. I have to handle some business here. Just a moment. Okay, guys, chat, could you guys let me know if you can hear me okay? Because I had to turn off the microphone there for a second to handle some business. Excellent, excellent. I should have thrown that in the disclaimer as well. You know, I do work from home. This is my office, and obviously if I want to keep excuse me. All right, back again. So anyway, what I was saying is what I'm going to do is open up my anaglyph demo, and first let's make sure it's still working. Press the Attack 2 button to toggle anaglyph during gameplay. So if you haven't seen this before, this is just a technical demonstrator I put together for the possibility of doing 3D in OpenBOR. This is not a true anaglyph because it doesn't do any of the distortion. It just does the, well, as you can see, the color portion of the anaglyph. But the important part is that it has full screen subscreens. So I'm going to copy the code from that and see if I can transpose it over into my Quest of Guyenne module for the full screen resolution upscale. Let's see. And again, I'm just feeling my way along. I've never done this before, so this is going to be, you know, kind of all over the place. And I used to be a Visual Studio fanboy, but SX, after his reappearance, has kind of turned me on to Visual Studio Code. It's a lot simpler, but it's also a lot cleaner. Sometimes Visual Studio can feel like swatting a fly with a sledgehammer. Okay, let me see how I've been doing this. Okay, looks like I use the updated to run the DC Anaglyph master, which I imported from main. Let's see. The master function was a wrapper function, which then ran DC Anaglyph draw. Change draw method. Looks like I used the old style change draw method, so that's good. No compatibility issues. Prepare screens and variables we need for Anaglyph. DC Anaglyph destroy. Okay. Everything looks good here. Let's back out and grab all that. Let's grab the updated script, the key all, and the Anaglyph. And then let's move back over to, let's see, Documents, Q of Q. And it doesn't even have a scripts folder yet. Oh, yes it does. What do you know? They're all disabled though. Good. Updated DC Anaglyph key all. All right. And let's start the module and hope that it does not error out and close. And it errored out and closed instantly. Well, let's see why. Your log text. Failed to import data, scripts DC Anaglyph main. Failed to compile, can't find the constant front panel Z. Well, I thought I was using a later version of OpenBOR that had front panel Z. I guess I don't or am not. So here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to try and pull in the latest version of OpenBOR because I'm sure that would cause me some other issues. I will worry about that for another day. But what I will do, let's go back over to Visual Studio Code. Open recent, work file, OpenBOR, and OpenBOR-H. What I'm doing is looking for the front panel Z constant because I'm just going to put that in manually. Front panel Z is player max plus 50. So what's the player max? Wait, actually I just remembered something else why that wasn't working. It's because I moved those. Those constants don't actually exist. They were changed to OpenBOR variants. I even put that in the compatibility list. You'd think that I would remember it. So let's close that out. Open this back up in Visual Studio. There. Okay, it is actually an OpenBOR variant. Front panel Z. I think that's right. Let's check out and make sure. This might take a couple different tries before it doesn't blow up in my face. Okay, explode it again. Thought I fixed that. Bear with me, you guys. I told you this would be all over the place. Again, I'm feeling my way through here. Data, scripts, DC Anaglyph, main, open in Visual Studio Code. Okay. Let's find the offending constant. There it is. OpenBOR constant and replace it with OpenBOR variant. Make sure I spelled that right. Okay. Replace U, not minint. Do replace front panel Z. Do replace front panel Z. Replace front panel Z. Don't replace U. Don't replace U. Don't replace U. Okay, and now we're looping. So let's save that and see what we get. Let me check the chat over here, just in case you all are. That's not the chat. Malik, I am using the latest and greatest. When I thought I wasn't, it was just a bit of confusion. The latest and greatest replaces constants that aren't really constants. An example of that would be front panel Z, which is the one that's had thrown me off now. Front panel Z is not a constant at all. That is actually a live calculated number. So it never should have been made an OpenBOR constant. So in 4.0, I moved that over to OpenBOR variant. And for whatever reason, when it threw an error, I was just assuming that I wasn't using the latest and greatest. So just a gaffe on my part. Anyway, let's okay. Let's see what our next problem is. OpenBOR variant, system not found, front panel Z. No problem. This is a little feature, by the way, that I'd like to advertise here that I made sure that OpenBOR 4.0 has, in that when something fails, it will try to give you a list, if possible, of the available properties you can use. So in this case, I can see that what I'm really looking for is front underscore panel Z, not front panel Z, all one word. So let's fix U, front panel Z, and let's fix U, front panel Z, and fix U2. I've got several of those. And I think that's all of them. So Control Save, click in, open again. There we go. All right, so there's our first step. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that. And the next step is I don't want to have two screens in an anaglyph. I just want to have one big screen covering everything. So in the anaglyph create, let's just destroy, which would we use, right or left? I'm going to use the left one. So let's just get rid of the right screen. And left screen using alpha 6 flags, 50 changes, allows us to override. Yeah, we don't want any of that. Screen object left, new only, then Z, max Z. It's the right screen I don't care about, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it. We don't need a screen right. Okay. All right, when I save it again, I should just have one of the anaglyph screens for when I run it again. Nope, instead I blew it up. The wonderful world of scripting. Okay, looks like I missed a variable. Screen object right, where are you? There we are. Had one of my clear screens, still existed there. Okay. Let's have a look, see if there's any left that I missed. I think I got them all. Okay, this is what I wanted. So now we're only seeing the left screen of the anaglyph, which of course is drawn with a very strong red tint. So next step is we'll remove those draw method effects, and we should just have a plain screen. Excuse me. Reset transBG alpha channel. Okay, let's get rid of some of that. And save and test again. We test, test, test. Okay. So we got rid of the red tint, but there's a bit of shading. That's a little odd. So let me see what's causing that. Oh, because it still had an alpha transparency enabled. It was displaying a 50% transparency over top of the original screen. So that's what you got, the shading. So should be nice and bright next time. There we are. So this is exactly what I wanted. So far, so good. This is the game exactly as it appeared before, except you are actually looking at it through a projected subscreen that's sitting on top of the main screen that used to have a red tint. Now it's just identical to the main screen. So the next step is we're going to go out of the module, and just to see what happens, data, video. I'm going to open that with Visual Studio Code. And let's see, video 960 by 540. And see what we get. Well, and I also need to set my video options now so that I'm not multiplying the screen anymore. There we go. So now we're running at native 960 by 540. And you can see, since my everything was designed for 480, it's all going to be kind of stuck up in the corner. All right, so far so good. Everything is aligned like I expected to be. And you can see the, it's sort of weird. The background is repeated and large enough to cover the area, but obviously the scenery is not, and Valicion is a pygmy on the screen, also like we expected. So now that I can see that resolution turned up, I'm going to turn the effects back on just to find out where our screen is in all of this. Well, that's somewhat odd. Our screen is covering, our subscreen is covering the entire main screen. That's a little weird. I wonder why. Let me check my code. Maybe I wrote it to adapt to the screen size, or to the resolution size. Let's have a look-see. Where is my screen creation? Create. Oh, well, that's why. I mean, I guess kudos to me that when I first wrote this code, I actually wrote it to adapt to whatever resolution the module happened to be turned to. But in this case, we don't want that. So I'm going to change it to 480 and 272. And now let's have another look. There we go. Now we're getting a little bit closer to what I expected. So there's the subscreen, and it covers, well, the same area as the module's intended design. And when we move around, our subscreen follows us. You can see the material when Valis is in and out of that. And incidentally, if you're wondering where that black border comes from, there are two screens that are going on here. There is what I call a background screen, and all it is just it's just black, and what it's doing is covering up the main screen behind it so you don't have any bleed through. And I just didn't adjust it accordingly. Scale X, 512, which should double our size. Scale Y, which should also double our size. And we're going to want to do the same thing for the background screen up here. Scale X, 512, scale Y, 512. Shut this off. Fire back up again. Okay. Everything's looking good. It's just got a red tint to it, which if we can get rid of, no problem. So we're going to get rid of that alpha. Good. Well, what do you think? Now we have Valicion and in his background are scaled up to fit the screen. Now I do see one minor issue, and that is the scroll position. We don't start scrolling until we're already pushing on the screen. Now then I have some example enemies popping in. I don't want to deal with that. So I'll need to do some work on the scrolling. That's going to be a little more complicated. That goes out of the scope of what I was working on here. This was just about, and I'll also need to set up the walking boundaries to accommodate this. Again, that's not really what I was worried about. I just wanted to see if it was credible to use a screen to scale up the visual aspects so that you can have a native 960 out of a 480. And of course, you could use whatever math. I mean, we could juice this up to 1080p if we wanted to. I don't really want to go that far with it. You see the scrolling and the motion works perfectly. Don't worry about the debug following along, because the screen is intentionally not capturing that text the same way that it's not capturing the HUD and expanding that. We could capture those elements if we wanted to. I just don't, because that's the whole point. I want the HUD to be displayed over top of this expanded screen. That way the HUD is actually using high definition elements without upscaling. And so that's why you're seeing the debug text. It's not scrolling at the same rate, and it looks a little bit small. That's not a fault of what we're doing. That's actually expected. The only big problems is we have to remember that the engine is thinking in the resolution that we've set it. So in other words, we are in fact traversing a 960 screen, not a 480 screen. And so we'll have to expand the stages accordingly, and I'll also have to set up scrolling accordingly, because if this were a 480 module, he would already be pushing the scroll line here. He doesn't make it until he's already off screen, and so again, that's just going to be some minor adjustments, nothing that we can't push through. This is what I wanted. So let me walk you through what's happening here again, because sometimes it can be a little confusing to understand how subscreens work, especially because the nomenclature of calling them screens as opposed to the main screen. So I'm going to shut the module off, and Q of Q, data, scripts. Don't worry about anything, because all this stuff is disabled. It's not doing anything at all. We have our updated, which that runs immediately after the engine has done all of its updates. And the reason that I use updated and not update is because if you use update to draw a screen, when you pause the game, the screen will be overridden. In other words, the main screen will be drawn after the subscreen, and the subscreen will disappear. If you want to see this side effect, you can open up Volcanic's Rocket Viper 2 module. In the boss fight with Raiden and Balrog, you'll notice that if you pause the game and look at the little display screen he's got in the arena, it doesn't work. I tried to explain to him that back before he went crazy and decided to go against us, but I guess it just didn't take. Anyway, not going to get into that here. Point being is you'll want to use updated when you're dealing with screens, not update. Now, update is very simple. Or updated, excuse me, is very simple. All it's doing is running the imported functions. So on create, which runs when the script is first created, it runs my DC anaglyph create function. So the create function is what creates our screen objects. Screens are like sprites. You have to load them before you can use them. And then from then on, you deal with them as you would any other type of memory resident object. So down here in our create, we've got our screen object, obviously a null, screen size. In the anaglyph demo, I wrote it to where the screens automatically adopt to the resolution of the module. I don't want that. I wanted them to be the size of my native objects. So in this case, 480 by 272. So then I allocate a screen, and then I set a local variable. Say that's for my background screen. Then I do the same thing again for what we're calling screen object left. Obviously, I want to give it a different name than that. Probably call it screen object upscale, but it's just a variable name. It can be whatever. And then this was for the anaglyph. It just turns the screens on and off, so it doesn't really have anything to do with what we're doing now. Then when the main runs, which of course is on every engine update. It's going to run DC Analyst Master. And master is just a wrapper function that then runs draw. That's in case I wanted to put anything else in there. And the master, first it draws the screen object background, which again, all screen object background is, it's just a black mat to cover the primary display screen so it doesn't bleed through. So the important part is if we go down here a little bit, first I check to see if we're in level. Since this is going to be all-encompassing throughout the game, I'll probably want to disable this since I'll need it upscaled in the select screen too, but I'll worry about that later. And I come down here and I start doing some draw method stuff. This is where the meat and potatoes happen. Notice the min z and the max z. So the minimum z is OpenBOR constant min int, and that constant is just a convenience function. It's just the minimum int that you can have in any 32-bit number, which is minus 2.4 billion. The max z is the front panel plus 9500. So the front panel, of course, is where OpenBOR natively sticks the scrolling front panel. I want the screen to be in front of that by a good distance so that I've got some room to play with, but I do not want it to be in front of the HUD elements. So that's why I used front panel Z and then just added about 9500 to it. The front panel Z is far in front of that, or the HUD panel, excuse me. So then we move down here and we just change it to where we reset our draw methods. We do not want a transparent background. We do want the draw methods enabled. Then we set 512, which is double 256. 256 is normal screen scaling for scale X. Same thing for Y. And then we draw the screen. Looks like I winked out there for a second. Okay, so I was saying screens can have anything drawn to them. So just like you have draw line, draw box, you can also, there are also functions for draw line to screen, draw box to screen, draw sprite to screen. But screen also includes a very cool function called draw sprite queue. And what that will do is capture a portion between offset X, starting at offset X and offset Y, and between a min Z and a max Z. So in other words, I'm telling it, I want all sprites, and remember in OpenBOR and pretty much every engine, everything is a sprite. So in other words, any text, any background images, whatever visual elements are on screen, capture them between min Z and max Z and place them onto this subscreen. And remember, my min Z is the minimum possible integer, and my max Z is just in front of the front panel. So the end result is that we're capturing everything that is drawn between the farthest back we could possibly be, but not in front of the HUD, and then we draw that screen just behind the HUD. And that is what, and then of course we scale that up. And that is what is getting our upscaled effect. Now for those of you, Onalesta, Douglas, you, if you're here, you're already doing this, even if you don't realize it, just on a temporary basis. This is how zoom effects work, like when you have like that KO effect and you're blowing the screen up. The only difference is you're just blowing the screen up to give it a really strong zoom in effect. In fact, I could even show you that here. Instead of 512, what if I made this 1024? And I think you can probably guess what we're going to see when, and there we are. So now we're blown up to double size. And we could even play with that a little bit more. What if we wanted to, let's see. I can't remember the, was it rotate? File, open window. File, open recent. Give me just a second here. I'm going to do a little experiment, and we're going to have just a little bit of fun here. Yeah, it is rotate. So let's just say, let's rotate it 90 degrees. Because I want to show you some of the effects you can start to pull off with screens. Oops, I think I forgot to take it back to 512. And I meant to rotate it 180 degrees, not 90 degrees. And it might put everything out of screen. Yeah, I think I've rotated it to where it's like all up in the corner, so let me move it a little bit. Screen position. Let's just move it 400 out and 400 out. There we go. So, what a feeling when we're dancing on the ceiling. I hope you're starting at this point to get a rough idea of what we can really do with screens. Any draw method effect that you want to apply, you can apply to the screen as a whole. And what's really cool is you can apply draw methods still to objects within the screen individually, and then you can have screens within screens, each one applying their own draw method effect. So that's when you start getting into really wacky stuff. You could have the screen like pulling, phasing in and out, spinning, whatever you want to do. It's possible, guys. And I haven't looked at the chat window in a while. Let's see. Just trying to make sure if anybody's got any questions. Are you going to release your game on Steam? Already answered that. We can get it on Android too. Can you hear me well? That was me. Okay, well, I'll stay on for just a couple more minutes if anybody has any more questions, but I think I covered everything I wanted to. Let me put my, since I made a royal mess out of my code, I'm going to put it back the way I found it. So we wanted 512, but we do not want rotation. And let's put our offsets where they belong. And let's test that again. All right, I'm happy with that so far. And while I'm waiting to see if anyone has any questions, let's go ahead and adjust our screen to where we get rid of that little bitty line that's over there off to the right. Where's our create at? There we go. And while I'm on the subject, this would also be how you could do zoom out effects. So in order to have a zoom out, you have to pre-plan. In other words, you have to have everything that's larger than it needs to be in the first place. So how I'm going to do that is I will build the levels to where when they are scaled up, then they'll actually push a lot of stuff off the screen quite a bit. So that if I want to, I can actually scale that back down and not lose anything proportionally. That gets into a little bit of math and kind of beyond the scope of this video, but it is something that I will show you later on. In the meantime, let me check this 40 here. Okay, good. Now we don't have any screen bleeding. Oh, Douglas, on the code, don't worry about that. I'm going to post this as a tutorial. Then I'll post the code, and in fact, I'll clean it up a little bit because again, where I've just been doing this live, the code is still kind of a mess. So I want to get you a version that's a little more adaptable and doesn't have so many artifacts from the anaglyph demo. So will that help you? All right, well, I don't see any more questions. This actually didn't take as long as I thought. The rest of the stuff, I don't know right off the top of my head how I'm going to fix the scrolling, so there's no point in doing that live. As soon as I figure it out, I will walk you all through it. But again, the screen works exactly as I wanted it to, and I hope that's